Why is mindset so important when starting a business or really when you're doing anything that's hard, right? But before I get into that, my name's Edison Titus. If you're a first time viewer, I'm with the Titus Law Firm. We're based out of Houston, Texas, and we handle cases and matters all over the great state, plus other administrative matter, all that good stuff. Sometimes we like to talk about things that are not hardcore legal, things that will help you achieve success but are not directly tied to the nuts and bolts of finance and or law or something like that. And that's what today is. So this is for anybody who is trying to do something hard. We're going to cater towards people going into the world of business, entrepreneurs, but it can be for anybody who wants to make varsity for their basketball team or is climbing the corporate ladder. They're a W-2 employee, but they're trying to move up. Uh, what are the things that separate the wheat from the chaff, right? How do you get there? The number one thing, in my opinion, is just having the right mindset. Uh, I don't remember who it was or where it was, but I heard in a, what do you call those things? Interviews, right? I heard in an interview, someone was talking about LeBron James and Oprah Winfrey and how they mold their lives around their respective thing. So, of course, LeBron James, it's about basketball. What he eats, it's about performance. His physical activity, it's about his performance. Spending time on the court, honing his skill set, it's about his performance in basketball, right? Every minute and everything of his day revolves around basketball. Now, sure, he has parents and he has kids and a wife. He has interests outside of basketball, and he does those things. He Is that right, grammar? Does those things? Okay, yes, and he does those things. But all of those things are satellites. All of those things surround, all of those things are part and parcel of the thing in the middle. The thing in the middle is basketball. That's what made LeBron James, right? That's what made Kobe. That's what made Jordan, right? Oprah Winfrey, same thing. Never met the woman. Here she's great. But I've heard some stories about how she's a force of nature and she's very, for lack of a better word, honed in on what she does, even now, right? And I hear the same thing about Beyonce and how she just doesn't let people play in her face like that. Like she is an artiste and she wants to make sure that everything is correct, right? So when I hear these stories about these types of folks, again, everything revolves around that thing. Beyonce, it's her music and her performances, right? Oprah Winfrey, it's her network, her shows, the production of her ideas and her shows, right? And so these people who eat, sleep, and quite frankly, shit this all the time, every day, it's their oxygen. So the mindset that they have is inherent to them. But you, even if it's not inherent to you, you can create that mindset. You can mimic that mindset. But let's be for real for a moment. A lot of you watching are never going to achieve that. And I don't mean that I'm not being a hater. It's just, we're not all built like that. And we're not all going to be able to achieve something like that, right? Because of the sacrifice that it involves. If you think for 1 second that LeBron James and Oprah Winfrey, Beyonce, Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, if you don't think that their lives, their internal life, and their relationships with others, whether it's spouses, children, whatever it may be, if you don't think that those relationships are fundamentally different than the average person's, and mind you, who knows what average is, right? Who knows what normal is? But if you don't think that their relationships and their life is a little bit different than yours, whoever you are watching, then you're kidding yourself because you don't get to where they're at or even anywhere close to it. And I hate to say it, but you're not going to do that and make every single one of your kids' recitals and basketball games and baseball games and so on and so forth. It's just probably not going to happen. Moving along from that sobering thought, what does having the right mindset help you do? The first thing is it helps you hone in on detail. Like, again, I remember Kobe, I think it was, in an interview talking about the number of shots that he would put up. But he's not just putting up shots. He's not just out there just to shoot. He's not doing that. He is paying attention to everything that he does every second of the way. He's paying attention to whether his pinky is there on the ball when he's shooting, whether it was here or whether it was all the way out, whether this part of his hand was touching the ball a little bit or a lot or not at all. He's paying attention to every single thing. He's mentally locked in to, was his knee turned this way or was it turned that way? And then when he finds something that works and feels good, natural, if you will, he then tries to replicate it over and over and over. And I could keep on going like that for about 7 minutes of just saying it over and over again. But he does not stop until it builds into muscle memory. And so that honing in on detail is not possible if your mindset is just like la di da, right? If you're just doing something, you make your bucks and then you go on about your business, like most people do in a 9 to 5, you're not going to have that attention to detail because the overall thing, the big picture does not really matter to you, right? So when you're locked in, when your mindset is locked in to whatever it is that you're doing, the hard thing, the starting a business, you can't help but look at every little detail and every little possibility, right? You got to suss all that out. You got to try A, B, and C and see what works best. And then different versions of whichever one worked the best. And you just keep on going. You just can't help yourself. That's the first thing, right? Now, that to me also blends directly into, I got a little list here. It also helps you go directly into the idea of building mental muscle memory, right? So you have that detail, that attention to detail, and some of that attention to detail is going to be some very foundational things I like to call like grit, perseverance, the ability to think flexibly, right? The ability to forget all the BS and focus on the solution, right? Be solution oriented, right? Now, sometimes, don't get me wrong, you got to figure out why the problem happened. In fact, all the time, right? But that's part and parcel of a solution because you want to solve the problem and then make sure the problem doesn't happen again if it's something that can and will happen again, right? And so what you'll find is if you're not automatically tuned that way, as these challenges arise and as you structure your life to have the right mindset to find this detail, you'll find that it'll become more automatic. You won't even think about it. You won't have to stop and say to yourself, I really need to focus on this problem and find a solution and not let it not happen again. Eventually, you won't even do that. You'll just automatically identify that there's a pain point, that there's a problem, and then you're going to, boom, find the solution and also find out what caused it, and you won't even think about it. That is what I like to call mental muscle memory. That's you being like Kobe, right? Instead of focusing on where the pinky is or where your knee is turned, you're automatically honed in on, for some reason, we got to this client 3 days late, right? And what happened? Why didn't we hear about this issue before the 3-day mark? Why didn't we take care of it before the 3-day mark? Because 3 days in your industry is far too long. You won't even think about it being a problem that you need to fix. You'll just do it. There will be muscle memory. And why does that matter? In my opinion, it matters because it decreases your mental fatigue, right? Have you ever started a new job? Or let's say, here's a better example. Have you ever been out of work for a little while and you got into a rhythm, whatever that rhythm is, and then you found a new job? Now, let's say that this job is just a straight up 8 to 5, 9 to 5 type job, hour commute into the city, hour to commute out of the city. And when you first start, there's this type of like fatigue that sets in, and you have to overcome that. You have to get used to the new job, the new people, the new commute, and then being at work for 8 hours a day when you were unemployed for a little while. I that sense of getting used to it is my version of building mental muscle memory, right? There's going to come a time when you don't even bother with it. It doesn't click for you that you're working 8 hours a day and you have 2 hours of commute, right? And so that's what you want to develop when you're starting a business or doing something hard. You just want to automatically pay attention to the detail and then solve what needs solving without you thinking about it. It's just what you do. Next would be building your life around the challenge. And that goes back to the Oprah, LeBron, Kobe. You have to build your life around whatever that hard thing is. Now, if it's a hard thing that's just a finite piece of time and then that's it, that's different. You've got a particular hurdle in life. That's different, right? But when you are taking on something that's going to be with you for the rest of your life, you've got to shift your life to include that thing. And for what we're talking about, center your life around that thing, right? That is going to be a hot take that a lot of folks don't agree with, and that's okay. My advice, these are just my opinions, take it or leave it. But for whatever the success that you're trying to achieve, you want to make sure that your commitment to it is commensurate with the mountain that you're climbing, right? And when you're doing that hard thing and you plan on doing it for the rest of your life and you want a big payoff, best believe that your best strategy, in my opinion, is to center your life around it, right? I don't think that Braun, Kobe, Oprah, Jeff Bezos, I don't think any of these folks would have gotten where they were or are if they didn't center their lives around it. I don't think I need to say too much more on that. I think that's self-explanatory, but I think that the hardest part for folks to swallow about that is that their interpersonal relationships are going to look fundamentally different. They're not going to necessarily suffer, but they're going to be different, right? Your significant other is either A, going to have to be okay with taking the back seat sometimes, as an example, or they're going to have to be an integral part of it. They're going to have to be in it with you, one or the other, right? But there's no scenario in which you're going to center your life around that hard thing and have a significant other who's not tied up in it, who still takes priority over that important thing. It's just not going to happen. So they either need to be okay with taking that second seat, or B, they need to be in the thicket with you somehow, some way, right? Next, eliminate the unnecessary. So what do I mean by that? I think that we get bogged down with a lot of things that are unnecessary. We don't realize it. We say yes to things we should say no to, or there are things that are fun or nice or good fundamentally, but they don't help you with whatever your main thing is. And when you have the right mindset it becomes painfully obvious this thing, whether it's going out and having a good time, a couple of drinks and all that sort of stuff, or playing video games. That's a vice of mine, that's for sure. Or whatever it is that you like to do, some sort of hobby. You'll start to realize that there are some hobbies that you can reduce the amount of time greatly. You'll realize that there are some people that you can reduce the amount of time that you talk to them or spend around them completely or eliminate altogether, right? It helps you hone in on what really matters. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that because you're circling your life around that thing, that's the only thing that matters. There are other things that matter and other things that you have to attend to and pour into. Yes, there are. But the number of things that outside of that one thing should be amazingly few. It really should. Eliminate the unnecessary. It's dead weight. And 10 times out of 10, those will be the things that kill your dream, that kill the thing that you're focusing on, right? Next is for all of this stuff that we're talking about, you know what? We'll talk about stealing your resolve last. But it also eliminates the need for alternatives. When you have the right mindset, you'll find less and less you're thinking, if this doesn't work out, then I'm going to do. Now, mind you, I'm not talking about alternatives within that thing that you want to do, that hard thing that you want to do. It's good to have alternatives within that, right? Hey, if this didn't work out, then I'm going to try that, or I'm going to pivot to this. That's perfectly fine. But to say, if this thing doesn't work out, then I'm going to scrap all of that and do something completely different. That's not a good mental mindset. That's not a good mental mindset to have, right? You need to cut that out. You almost need to have zero plan B whatsoever. Now, to help illustrate this point, to highlight that, think about the average person with the 9 to 5 job and their living life. Assuming that they're happy at their job, at no point are they thinking about, I'm going to quit this and go do something completely different. They might say, I'm going to quit that job and find another job doing the same thing, like they're an accountant. And so for one reason or another, maybe they're going to try and find an accounting job somewhere else, right? Maybe it's more pay or a better position or whatever the case may be. Maybe it's remote, right? That's perfectly fine. You're still an accountant. You're just doing a little bit of a pivot for whatever legitimate reason that you've got. But rarely do people say, I'm an accountant and now I'm going to drop that and I'm going to go be an HVAC technician, or I'm going to become a graphic design artist. Rarely do people do that. But no one really thinks about that. It's just the norm. It's what we do. But if we take that same type of thinking towards that hard thing or that business that you want to start, the same thing tracks. You can't have a plan B. You shouldn't have a plan B. It's bad for your mental. You don't have the right mindset. Because the moment you say, if this business that I've started, this dry cleaning business that I've started doesn't work, I'm going to go do something completely different, then you've already failed. It's almost predestined at that, right? Not to be fatalistic about it, but that's how I think about it, right? And so to wrap it all up, you got to steel your resolve. All of these things that I'm talking about, it helps steel your resolve. Life is not the easiest thing in the world, right? I'm sure most of you would agree. But you could probably agree that most of the hardship that you face, it all comes from you, right? Pretty sure about that. 99.9% of your hardship comes from you. And I'd say of that 99.9%, 99.9% of that is all in your head. It's all mental. Now, don't get me wrong. All of this has real world effects on you, your family, your ability to perform, your ability to earn. But none of it's going away anytime soon, right? It's just not. I don't care what it is. It could be your sexual orientation, the fact that you're a woman, you're black, you're Latino. I don't really care what the hardship is. You came from money, you came from no money, you're connected, you're not connected. All of those things, those problems are going to exist whether or not you do the thing or try to do the thing that you want to do. It's your job and your job alone to steel your resolve and overcome those things. Because whatever your starting point is, what it is. Sorry. So, what about the other thing that make life hard and that make your thing hard? Well, like I said, a lot of them are going to be boiling down to your decisions and your actions and the things that you do. And that's okay. That's called being human, right? You just got to own up to that, swallow the castor oil, and then make better decisions and make better actions moving forward so you have less shit to deal with, right? Less bad stuff to trudge your way through. Eventually, whatever mistakes and bad decisions you made in the past, eventually you'll trudge through all of that and be free and clear. And hopefully, while you're trudging through that, you're making good, solid decisions that you wouldn't have to trudge through later. Once you realize that you're the master of your universe in that regard, and there's not a lot of bunch of random stuff happening that's randomly making your life hard, then it's easier to control the variables that you can control. But none of this is possible without the right mindset and without stealing your resolve. Every last one of those things. Because at the end of the day, it's up to you to build your life, including the people that are in it, and how you relate to one another, how you connect to one another, right? And grow from there. It's all on you. It's just, do you have the cojones to actually make it happen, right? So yeah, got a little somber for a moment there, a little melancholy. Is that the right word? But I think it's good information nonetheless. I hope you can wrap your mind around it and digest it and actually take it to heart. I didn't always think this way, but as time goes on, I'm more and more in that direction. And I think it's helped immensely. So hopefully it helps you as well. All right. Again, my name is Edison Titus with the Titus Law Firm, and follow us for more.